This is the Analysis in Chains with Nathan Williams and Neal Kieran.
Welcome to Analysis in Chains with Nathan and hold on, wait a minute. Neal, we got a bit of news here. We got some change-ups.
Yeah, we have to change our introduction.
We have the good fortune of becoming part of cryptonews.com. This has been a while coming, and so now we have to start the show new. Take two. Welcome to Analysis in Chains by cryptonews.com, your daily source of all things crypto. There, how does that sound?
Whoa, that sounds very professional.
Yeah, so Neal, what happened essentially was we've had a good friend of ours who is running cryptonews.com, and he has been giving us a lot of people to interview. He's set us up with a lot of high-profile projects, which is why we have been able to conduct this podcast and doing so many interviews with people who have got these interesting projects. And he approached me a couple of months ago, asking if I would build up a podcast for Crypto News. And I said, well, what do you want it to be like? And he said, well, very similar to what you have now. And I was like, well, why don't we just make this part of Crypto News? So, so it seemed like an easy solution. And so, it's nice because we get to be part of a bigger brand, and because Crypto News, being part of that raises the profile a little bit. But Neal and I are still going to be here. We're still going to put it out. So it doesn't change actually that much. It's just that for format, for everything like that, we're going to get a new logo. We're going to have Crypto News manage the website and everything like that. So, fun times.
Yeah, it is. It is fun times, and because it's just the two of us. We're very, very busy. We're running around chasing projects and trying to maintain the podcast. And just by having more resources means that it can help us with the reach of the podcast, in terms of the promotion, and helps us have a more polished experience for our listeners. And hopefully, it can help us expand the community as well.
Yeah, and to be honest, I felt a little bad because, the Slack group has sort of trailed off in the past little while. We haven't promoted the nutshells as much. So maybe this will give us a little more freedom to do that. And, get the community back and put the spring back in the step.
Exactly. And because this is the thing about crypto. It's growing, and the more it grows, the more people come in, the more resources you need to maintain any sort of project you're doing. So yeah, as you said by Slack, it's been difficult to stay on top of it and to keep people engaged, and hopefully now we should be able to have a better experience.
Yeah, and it's good timing too, because I don't think it's just because we've been busy. I think part of it, Neal, is that we went through that sort of mini crypto winter right up until everyone did their taxes, and now that people are excited again, it's starting to pick up. So
exactly, yeah, I think we need to be ready for when the herd is coming.
Yeah, and I really do think. We've said this before. We're like broken records, but I do think that the interest is picking back up again. Some of the indicators that I've been using is just sort of following up with people who've been on the show who have done ICOs or pre-sales or that sort of thing. And for example, there are a couple of people who were on the show in January and February who did their ICO then, ended up raising around 10 million. Now that's good. They're good projects. And so they raised 10 million in the middle of February, and when their hard cap was somewhere in the order of 30. But recently, since the crypto interest has picked back up, I've got a friend who was on the show recently who just sold out his pre-sable, and he was double oversubscribed. And I got an email, like just sort of a newsletter email from Project Shivom, who was on the show with Frank in a couple of weeks back, and yeah, they've reached 33 million in out of 35 hard caps. So not to promote any one particular show, but just to illustrate that it looks like similar type projects seem to be getting more interest and getting further faster.
Yeah, I agree. It's very evident from, you could say, the mainstream media that they're starting to pick up their interest as well, because it was so easy to trash Bitcoin and crypto in general over the last few months. And so anyone that was saying that Bitcoin was worth less than $1,000, looked like a genius and, looked like some sort of expert. But now I think they're starting to have egg on their face, because people are starting to realize, hey, this is not going away. And it really has, I guess, has bottomed out, in relative to the recent price spike. And, some people are really starting to realize, okay, this is a big investment opportunity. I read more and more news about, people from Wall Street joining this. I've been saying it for various weeks on the podcast, but it's like every week, there's more news of more high profile professionals from Wall Street joining crypto, because they realize there's something big happening. It's still very hard to tell what the future will be. Like, will it be that you have Wall Street and then you have the crypto market, two separate entities, or will they end up becoming one? Or because, and the reason I say that is because if you're a company with ICO tokens, do you eventually do an IPO and end up on Wall Street? So there's still so much to figure out, and that's why it's so interesting, and a lot more professionals are gaining into this space, and there's a lot more VCs putting their money in. And I think this year is going to be a big bumper year, and I think more of the masses will get involved this year for sure.
I'm pretty sure that Polymath would say yes. That people would put their stuff on crypto. Remember we interviewed that guy Chris Hauser from Polymath.
Yeah,
that's what they were doing, putting the stocks on in tokenizing them.
Yeah, I believe they're very busy. I see them in the news every so often, and it's what's so interesting is that there's so many amazing projects. It's so hard to keep track of them, and this is potentially one risk going forward with ICOs, is that if you have an amazing project, maybe you could raise 30 million easily a year ago, but now there's so many out there, it becomes harder and harder. Like, the masses are coming in, they want to get invested. I think a lot more millennials will trust an ICO or in crypto more than they would with any sort of asset class on Wall Street. But the thing is that it's becoming so noisy that trying to separate yourself from the crowd is becoming more difficult. And again, it's where VCs come into play, is that you need VC money to help promote your ICO and then get some traction, or you do some grassroots campaign, which is very laborious, but it can work. So we'll see over the next few months who will emerge, and because for sure it's going to become a lot more difficult for ICOs to make a splash like they did a year ago.
I just want to say I called this. I don't remember when, but I totally called this. Because when there's only a small amount of ICOs, I mean, even like this time last year when you had, a few hundred, then individuals can go through and they can go, okay, I like this one, I don't like that one. They get excited, and then the retail market sort of bubbles up, and people throw in 1,000 euros or like a couple of ether or whatever at various projects just to try it out. But as it gets bigger and bigger, more people entering the market, it's harder and harder to evaluate. And that's when professional investors come up. I mean, there's a reason that most standard startups don't have average people throwing in 10,000, 20,000 just to see if they pay off and become the next Uber. It usually falls to venture funds or specific angels who dedicate themselves to going around and sifting through and finding the good ones out of the thousands of junky ones that are out there. And I mean, this is what's going to happen, because I mean, there's more and more people entering the space.
Yeah, you're completely right. And I think what we'll probably start seeing happening is some form of curation of crypto, because on one hand, you can separate crypto from what is being mined and what is not being mined, like what's just a basic token. But Funstat came up with some new indexes that help separate the different types of crypto that's out there. For example, you have platforms, be it Cardano, Ethereum, NEM, Stellar, for example. These are the ones we often hear that some ICOs use as part of their projects. And then you have your currencies, that is more like Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash. You could say Dash as well, and maybe Zcash. And then you have privacy coins, which again includes Zcash, Monero, and lots of other privacy coins like Bitcoin Private also that are gaining more traction. Then there's the references. I don't know if it's like references or something that's tied to, say, US dollar. You have DAI, you have US Tether. I think Haven is trying to be one. Haven as well. So what we're going to be seeing, I think, over time is maybe some, and this is sometimes I wonder if coin market cap is maybe aging poorly, is that we're going to have to see different indexes emerge. Okay, so you go to one index and look at all the crypto related to that index, because that is how the stock market works today. A lot of things are categorized as different levels of the stock market. It's because when people talk about the stock market, they talk about groups of particular type of, say, tech, or they talk about the oil industry, they talk about commodities. And we're going to have to start seeing that, because it becomes a lot more difficult for any ICO or any currency to get any sort of traction, to get any sort of publicity, because if you're an investor, you want to make sure people hear about your cryptocurrency. And so we're going to have to start seeing some form of curation out there, because you have a lot of gaming tokens like Wax or Engine Coin or Unicoin. So ideally there should be sites or indexes that just talks about that for people who only care about that type of crypto.
Speaking of new and interesting crypto platforms, by the way, I went to a Hashgraph event last night. Have you heard about Hashgraph, Neil?
No, I haven't heard too much about it. There's so much crypto to keep track of. I don't know much about them.
Well, basically, I've only heard limited amounts, but the people I've run into who talk about Hashgraph talk about it in the same way that people talked about IOTA last year. You would go to, I remember going to a blockchain event, and always there would be one or two people in the back going, yeah, but what about IOTA? What about the Tangle? It's going to completely change everything. And as though we should have already known about it. And nowadays, IOTA is becoming a bit more mainstream, and they've got some good technology. There's still some open questions, but they've got some partnerships. They're testing stuff. You don't see that as much. But what was interesting is that I was finding the same sort of stuff with Hashgraph, of people saying it's an amazing technology. What, you don't know about it? It's going to destroy blockchains. And so I went to the event last night, and it was a sales event. I really don't know what to make. I'm of two minds of it. On the one hand, the idea seems interesting. Okay, the idea is that instead of doing a slow algorithm where you're slowing down computers and having them take 10 minutes to mine a block, and throwing away, if you've got like two blocks that are made at the same time, you throw them away. Instead, by sending signed events or signed transactions, there are ways of incorporating additional information in order to be able to determine what the actual order is of all transactions without sending them all through the internet. So it cuts down on a lot of throughput, makes it a lot faster. Up to, they say, 100,000 transactions a second, so very scalable. So that part looks interesting, but there are red flags. And a couple of the red flags, they started with private permission networks. Not that they have to with this protocol, but they wanted to do that in order to build trust. And the funny thing is, in the crypto world, it does the opposite. If it's closed source, if it's if it's patented, if it's private permission network, that all erodes trust in crypto. And I encountered a lot of that last night. People just going, not so sure about this. And I could tell the founder was feeling a little defensive about trust and was addressing those issues. All those things I said, they did patent their software, and it is closed source. So we can't really guarantee that the code works the same as it does in the white paper. So I'm really not sure what to make of it. What I do know is that they have a governance model that's proof of stake, and they handpicked 39 companies to be the first governors of the protocol. Now they have a thing where you have a 2-term limit and 3-year terms. So if you're voting on how the protocol goes, then you have to make it's theoretically in your best interest to make sure that it's done properly. But I don't know. It sounds very centralized to me, even though the guy was rather insistent that it is decentralized. So. I don't know. My warning alarm is going off with this one.
Yeah, it's tough to know until they actually have some sort of product that can be evaluated, and if we can somehow monitor their transactions. Because until then, people are just going to be buying and selling based on news, based on potential partnerships, no different to what we see with IOTA and some other crypto out there. So, because if we look at some of the more mature cryptocurrencies, say like Ethereum and Bitcoin, there's such a huge infrastructure already built that helps you track transactions and really see what's going on underneath the hood. And anything that doesn't have that yet, it is a risk. Like I have some crypto. I bought some Cardano crypto. And to me, it's a risk because it doesn't have this infrastructure that's already been built. But the thing is that it doesn't deviate too much away from what, say, blockchain is. Some of the stuff out there, be it Nano or IOTA or Hashgraph, it kind of deviates away from what we know about blockchain and its new ideas. And innovation is great, but until they start building this sort of infrastructure that helps us really understand what's going on, it's very hard for me to really get on board.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens in the future, and we'll keep an eye on it. This is the first that we've talked about Hashgraph, and so who knows? Maybe it'll take off and be amazing, or maybe it will not. We'll find out. One last thing before we leave, Neil, I wanted to let everybody know that we have an event coming up in San Francisco on the 25th of May. We'll have a meetup on that soon, but what's special about it is I am going to be there.
Hey.
I'm going to be in San Francisco at the end of May. And yeah, 25th, I will be at our Analysis in Chains event, Blockchain Unpacked, by Crypto News. Got to get used to that. And the thing is, if there's someone high profile that one of our listeners maybe knows that would like to be on the show, it'd be cool if I could do a live interview down there. I'll phone some of the people maybe we contacted already, but if someone's listening and they have a contact that would be appropriate for the show, yeah, just send them along. Contact us on the Slack group. Maybe we can have a live recording down there with an interview partner. All right, Neil. So have a great week and keep on hashing. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.